Good evening. Welcome to the Glens Falls Common Council meeting. It's Tuesday, April 9th, 2024. And we've got regular Common Council session starting at 7:30. We begin with the Pledge of Allegiance led by, I don't see it in my notes, whatever.
No, I read it last week.
Oh, then maybe.
So Mary, might be there.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We'll start the Common Council meeting, open to public comment. Anybody like to address the council? I've got 3 presentations under public comments to come in just a moment, but if anybody, not one of those 3 presentations, would like to come up to the council, please come up and tell us your name and your address. Not seeing anybody run up to the council. Peter, you let me know if somebody pops up online with a question or comment. All right, nobody wants to talk yet. That's great. So first up, we'll have Jim Lieberman, the district manager for Soil and Water, Warren County Soil and Water District, and Elizabeth Hogan to speak on the Crandall Park Invasive Species Plan. This plan, council members, is in your packet. Good evening. Yeah, welcome.
Good evening. Hello. So I'm Elizabeth Little-Hogan, President of the Crandall Park Beautification Committee. I'm here with Jim Liebram, Warren County Soil and Water. And what Jim is holding is an invasive species map of Crandall Park. So,
Jim, can you turn it around just for a second and get Peter's camera? There we go. We've had people requesting different points of view. There you go. Thank you, Jim. No, appreciate it.
So in your packets, you had one map. This is an updated map, and I can leave a small copy of the updated map for you too. So the mayor asked us to come tonight. The project we're proposing is a community engagement project. Hopefully people will volunteer to come to the park and help us remove the invasive species from the park. There's amazing amount of burning bush and bittersweet, among other invasives in the park. Several months ago, Jim and I and Mike Greenslade walked all the forests of the park because we wanted to do an assessment of how the forests were. And after doing the assessment, we realized how many invasive species there are. And Jim said something to me. He said, if we do nothing, in 100 years, all we will have is a few oak trees and burning bush. So that certainly lit a fire in the committee, pardon the pun. And we organized this invasive species week. So it's awesome that Warren County Soil and Water is willing to commit a person to come each day during Invasive Species Week, which is June 3rd through June 7th. So there'll be someone in the park from 10 to 2, and we're hoping we get a lot of volunteers to come in and remove the invasive species. So Jim can tell you why it's important. I think it's better to have the expert tell you.
Thank you. I will say I'm not an expert, but I have stayed at a Holiday Inn. So essentially, the way I look at it now, and I think I'm in my 27th year at Soil and Water doing a bunch of different things. We know that there are plants out there which are invasive, and what does that really mean? Because as plants spread, those are successful plants, but you have changes to the ecology, which changes the diversity of species. Stuff that we have in the Crandall Park there may or may not have been there 100 years ago. It may not be there in the future. But the one thing that I noticed probably about 10 years ago, the section of the park over by the Northway that off of Dixon Road, there was that white house that was purchased and incorporated into the park, and you go through there, Coles Woods. So I noticed over in Coles Woods to start that in the fall you had nice pine trees and everything else. It's a beautiful color, but it's winged euonymus, it's burning bush, so everything is bright red. So that started popping out and standing out. So when we went to the park in December, we walked around and just made an observation of that. I noticed I have to watch what I say around it, which picks things up pretty well. And it is true though, that, if Glens Falls wants to have a diverse forest, then I would anticipate doing some work there. And this is one way to do it, but also it's to garner people's attention and get them involved. And it's something pretty simple. And we said, yeah, what we can do is, the burning bush is a species you can pull when it's small enough, so it's easy to take care of. Larger stuff, we have a couple special tools that attach and you lever them out. And beyond that, I've already talked to Tom Gerard to see if he'd give us a hand from DPW. I talked to the folks from the Adirondack Park Invasive Plant Program on how to deal with the plant afterwards, because we don't want to take it. And they said, chip it up and blow the wood chips back in. It makes total sense to me. So, we thought we'd take it on, offer it up as part of the program, see what people would be interested in it, and not have it onerous. I think, what was it, 10 to 2?
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
basically, just have something like that. So, as an aside, one of my staff and I are actually also going up to the town of Johnsburg once that week and doing that up in the Ski Bowl Park. Up there, they have autumn olive, which if you grab it, it's got nasty thorns in it. So, if the general rule of thumb, if it has a lot of thorns, and it's saying stay away from me. So, these are just things to be aware of, to help the future ecology, the future of the park, and keep that diversity, which is good for wildlife, it's good for the community, and when you're looking at climate adaptation, you need that diversity. So.
And I do want to make one more addition to my report. I have scheduled to appear before the Tree Council on April 17th, because after reading the code, not only do we need Common Council approval for this, we also need the Tree Commission to approve of this as well.
So,
I can show you the area we're going to start with. We got to get oriented. Sorry. Right. So like the area, pavilions on one side and what they call the driving range is on the other side. So we're hoping that we get that one done. And then if we have tons of volunteers, we're going to advertise in the papers, and maybe we'll move on to another side. And you all are welcome to come and volunteer if you'd like.
And recruit the disc golf players too.
that's
Yes,
right,
yes.
So they show up on that day, you recruit them right in.
Yes.
Help us pull, and then you can play. So we have Tom there, and I think we're using the chipper that we have. Is that right? We're bringing the chipper?
Yeah, what'll happen is we'll coordinate. I'm going to meet Tom ahead of time and say, where would you like the piles put? So as the material's brought out, put it someplace where it's easy access for he and his crew, and they can come along and chip everything. And
Is it like the bittersweet not a good thing to chip because it spreads really easy from shoots?
Bittersweet, we would not put through the chipper because it will bind up the chipper.
And
A bind.
yeah,
So
there's also, I'm sure in the park there's Japanese knotweed because it's
Yep.
everywhere in Glens Falls, and that's another one that propagates very well from being smashed up.
There's only 3 little sections of that.
Okay.
We have a plan for that too.
At this point, you're just pulling, and you guys are gonna be there as well, and
Yeah.
volunteers.
Well,
so-
someone from Cranley
so
Park
we're not
Beautification
pulling-
and
We're not pulling the wrong thing, right?
because the idea is this
education
is not,
first.
this is not going to solve the problem. What this is going to do is to help give the native species, sugar maples, your red maples, your birch, other things of that nature, a chance to sprout and grow. That's the only hope that you really have on such a widespread, wide-flung amount of vegetation. So,
Count me and sign me up.
Great. Monday, 10 o'clock,
All right.
June 30th.
Thank you. Any questions?
Thanks for your work on this.
Thank you. So you'll say you're formally approving it, like, by the code, you actually have to
Absolutely.
do that.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Next up, we have Sue McEnany and Robert Kazar from KLW to present answers and questions about the partial reassessment. Look at that. She's staying right back there, huh, Robert?
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, everyone. For those of you who haven't met, my name is Robert Kazarek. I'm an appraiser with KLW Appraisal Group. We've been working with the city over the last couple of years on the reassessments on the city. What's happened over the prior couple of years since we did the reassessment is market's still appreciating, and last year the equalization rate dropped from 100% equalization down to 94. This year we did a review, a statistical analysis of sales that occurred in the area, and we've made adjustments to certain areas and certain property types to try and get back up to that 100%. In doing that, we know it raises a lot of questions. We'll be meeting with homeowners like we did previously in an informal meeting session to answer their questions, hear their concerns about changes in values, changes in their property, that sort of thing, over the next, primarily this week, possibly next week if we need it. At this point, we haven't gotten as many calls as we thought, where it doesn't, I don't want to say we don't need to do next week yet, but we're holding out on that. Instead of doing that, we'll see how this week goes. We still have a lot of open appointments, so hopefully people that have questions will call in. Important things to note is that in doing this adjustment, the equalization rate in the city is going from 94 back to 100, which means because of that, now there's a change in the taxable value. Budgets stay the same, tax rates go down. So just because an assessment goes up a certain amount of money, you can't use the current tax rate as a measure of what will happen to your taxes, much like the last time. Unfortunately, the notices that we sent out are change of assessment notices, and they don't have all that detail like they did in the disclosure notices that we did a couple years ago. But the same principle applies. As the taxable value of a municipality increases, the budget stays the same, the tax rate changes. So those things all still apply, whether you get a notice saying so or not. Like I said, we'll be here the rest of the week, working on the second floor with Sue. If any of you have any questions, we'll be here to answer them for you.
A quick one, if I could. So going forward, how often will we take a look at this?
Well, we initially planned on trying to not make any adjustments unless absolutely necessary. If we could keep close to that 100 or stay at that 100. I've been working with Sue over the last couple of years since the reval, looking at specific properties that might be new construction or redeveloped properties, things like that, to make sure that the values are correct. We did have to review and do a new update, citywide update, every property like we did a couple of years ago, I believe, for the 26th roll.
4 years from
Right.
from the last one.
So I think for the 26 tax roll here was our initial plan. The market has been changing so rapidly that we felt we needed to step in and make an adjustment to try and get us back to that 100%.
Thank you.
So was that 95% previously, did you say?
Mm-hmm.
And we just adjusted it at 5%. We felt 5% was a line where we needed to
In certain areas, yes. In certain areas it's a little bit more, certain areas a little bit less, or not. And that's all looking at sales that occurred within those regions and types of properties is what guided us to make these adjustments. And we consulted with New York State, had similar analysis. Yeah.
What was the percentage? It was 94%. Like
94.
you didn't make this change, we would have been at 94%.
No, you would have been below 90.
Oh, okay.
for the next tax roll?
Yes.
Really?
Yes. If we did not make this change, I think it would have been 88 or 89.
Oh my God.
So just again, another 1 year period, not doing anything, it's another 5 to 6% increase in value across the city.
Would have been right there.
And again, like I talked last time when we did this, if you were here, different property types may change in value differently, okay, or different areas may change in value differently. So it's not all equal. So when that equalization rate changes, it may apply to one property, it may apply to none. So, because it's, again, that's also a statistical analysis of all the real estate activity across the community. So, keeping up with them is really the best way to go.
I do have, I have a couple of questions, and, I'll reserve some of them when we meet, because I want to meet.
Sure.
But I'm curious that when I asked for a list of, where changes were and stuff, I got a list of like certain areas that didn't change. And I found it interesting that there were certain pockets, but yet the neighborhoods around them, the streets around them didn't stay the same as well. They increased, I'm assuming, based on this list that I have.
Mm-hmm.
How do you, I just,
Because
what's your,
we drill down into certain property types within areas, okay? And there are certain areas that the assessment was actually higher than what the properties were selling for. Okay, so we didn't just slightly higher. So those properties were not adjusted.
okay.
Okay.
So they stayed the same.
Correct.
Well, you might want to also for the, when you meet with anybody that, individually, to show the whole, that neighborhood chart is pretty wild looking, right? It's, when you said, geez, Mary, you're in a neighborhood it's going up, I was thinking what I consider to be my neighborhood, but that's not. You've got this detailed map of one little neighborhood. It might be a street and a half here, might be a couple streets over
Correct.
here, and that's, you're calling that a neighborhood thing, but it's not typically what we might call the Jackson Heights neighborhood, or the Kensington neighborhood.
Right. Well, there's different ways to look at neighborhood. Okay, so the traditional neighborhood is a geographical boundary, right? So it's all the properties within, whatever it might be. There's a neighborhood by my house or near where I live. It's very much defined by two major roadways. One's a throughway, one's a major north-south thoroughfare, and then railroad tracks on the north-south. Okay, creates this rectangle of properties. That's a neighborhood, right? It's geographical boundaries. We look at neighborhoods differently. We look at an economic neighborhood. So we look at property types, similar physical characteristics that are selling for similar rates. Okay, so we look at an economic neighborhood, not a geographical neighborhood. So like your ward districts are absolute geographical neighborhoods. Okay, when we look at neighborhood, we look at it in a different way.
Is there any breakdown of specifically what your criteria is for describing what a neighborhood is then?
It's really again, it's an analysis of properties that are similar physical characteristics, year built, quality of construction, typical sales, very close sales price per square foot is how the neighborhood was defined.
To me, it's not giving me a clear idea of what a neighborhood
That
is.
would be the whole city would be how,
You
there's similar
can do
properties
is
all
send
over.
him that it is a confusing, even the map, when Sue showed it to me, certainly colorful.
Sure,
And it looks a bit
yeah,
like
we
a
can-
Rorschach
we
test.
can-
So, right, but it will, I think, give Councilman Lapham an understanding of how, how many, there's over almost a dozen? Am I saying that wrong? 11? 10 or 11?
10.
10, so it's not neighborhoods that we think, like you're saying, it's an economic neighborhood. It didn't seem to
So
make.
I just want a little bit more clarity on what you mean by a neighborhood if you're saying it's not like what I think it means.
That's fine. We can. I'll see if we have do we have a digital map of that, or just printouts.
I have a map of
Okay. We can get that.
And would that neighborhood change if we go through this again, or are we staying with that same?
We can do an
neighborhoods?
analysis and review that going forward.
I just want to make sure there's some constants here and things like that. If the neighborhoods change based on, I'm assuming, sales and things like that, I'm confused, so.
Yeah, it's nothing like we've talked about. It's an individual, like the homes in Kensington were built, you can almost see them like the Partridge Family homes or whatever. They're built in a different time than the Jackson Heights area.
Right.
And like Windy Hill is its own little neighborhood area.
Correct.
So
Correct.
again, if you show them that, then you can at least start the conversation there and explain what makes that different. Because there's no physical attribute, like you're saying, railroad tracks, this neighborhood. It's nothing to do with the wards. It was made long before that, and it's about types of homes, age of homes, quality of homes. Yeah.
So I would assume all the new construction along the canal is considered a neighborhood? Then?
Within a neighborhood, yes.
Okay, as opposed to all the streets surrounding that neighborhood, Arlington, Beacon, Boylston,
Wait,
Jackson.
I'd look at it, yeah.
Yeah, okay. I just want to make sure, like, that didn't factor into any of the calculations. The new construction is separate then?
When we do our evaluation, yes,
Okay.
it's separate.
When we talked about this a few years ago, we found that there was state aid available to municipalities that do this on a regular basis.
Mhm.
I want to say every 3 or 4 years, something like that.
Correct.
Does this count because it was not a full reval to help us get state aid to pay for it?
Yes,
It does.
it counts.
Okay.
It doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to get state aid.
But it counts to apply for it.
It counts to
We
apply
could
for it,
apply for
absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
And we're definitely applying with
Yes.
with the full one that would be in 2026.
Yes, like we did with
Could
the
we
last one.
apply this year because
Yes.
of this partial assessment?
Yes, so what the state has a program where they will reimburse more money if you go through an entire reassessment project like we just previously did, right? They'll reimburse in a larger rate per parcel. Then they also reimburse if you maintain and update on a regular basis. There's also another reimbursement. That's great. That's what the program is. In reality, I'm just going to be honest. What the state has is they set aside a certain dollar amount, and all the municipalities that do a reassessment, they try and reimburse them first, and then when they run out of money, they run out of money, and that's it. So that's why I say yes. You absolutely qualify to apply. That doesn't mean you're going to receive anything. And sometimes they'll like in the past they've done like on reassessment projects. They say that and the wording is that they will reimburse up to $4 per parcel. And we've done projects where then the town was reimbursed like $2.91 per parcel. And that's because they're trying to spread the money out over more municipalities. They have a set bucket set aside to do this. So.
Great. Any other questions? Thank you, Robert.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks.
And like I said, if you have any questions, I'll be here and we'll get information to you as soon as we can. All right, thank you.
Next up, we have Matt Fuller to speak on behalf of Stewart's remodel expansion project on Sherman Avenue. This is a new project. I passed out Matt's materials just a moment ago. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor. As the Mayor noted, Matt Fuller with Meyer, Fuller, and Stockwell for Stewart's. I'm here with Chuck Marshall, and we also have our traffic engineer, Mark Pascalo from MJ Engineering. As you probably recall, we were here a few months ago dealing with 4 Sherman Avenue, and as we got into design of the gas and improvements to make on the combined 360 Glen and 4 Sherman Ave, it became pretty apparent that at some point work at that intersection is going to need to be done with the city. And that's the Sherman Ave and Glen Street intersection. So that kind of sent us to the drawing board to evaluate possible relocation of the store, placement of the store on the site, while leaving some land eventually for a turning lane. is really what kind of drove the bus on this. So Chuck and I started talking, and we started looking at ideas and approached the two owners on Bacon, 1 and 3 Bacon, excuse me. Number one, to gauge their interest with the store being right there. But number two, to gauge their interest of working with us to sell their properties to accommodate a new store, a whole new rebuild, similar to what you've seen Warren and Bridge. So we ultimately were able to come to an agreement with the two owners. They're both single-family residentials. I remember, last time we were here, we had discussion about multifamily residential lots and things like that. These two are single-family residential. So we did have done a traffic analysis. We don't have a traffic study done that we would get into with the planning board. We can send it to the council if you guys would like to see it as well. But the intersection's been rated, and improvements that need to be made even now, signaling and things like that, that's not currently functioning. But really our goal here is to, as we did last time, gauge the common council's interest in what would now be a replacement of that store with an upgrade, I think a significant upgrade. It would allow us, I think, better access to leave land so that if the city ever does get to the point of putting in a turning lane on Sherman, that we wouldn't impact that. So we would have enough setback between the store, the gas, and a future property line for the intersection at Sherman and Glens. And we think, again, kind of the data that the planning board gets into in reviewing projects, but we think that the data of a traffic study on this site for this intersection supports the drive of what we're trying to do. You remember last time we were here, we talked about eliminating the access right there at the intersection and right along Glen there. That this is going to allow us to accomplish that. So our hope would be, if the Common Council finds it in your pleasure, to refer us to the planning boards, county and the city, to see what they think. Because obviously it's a rezoning request, the two spots right there in Bacon. Again, we fully acknowledge the discussion we had last time about the the switch from the residential, but we still believe that this store and this location is relatively important to this area of the city. I think it's a big pedestrian access site. I know I walk from my apartment to it once a week to get my eggs and milk. And I think it is still an important food outlet in that area of the city, as well as the gas and other amenities that we have. I will take questions if anybody's got any for me, or Chuck.
Are you saying, Matt, that the original plan was to take that parking lot, and I thought you were going to put your gas tanks back there, right? And get them off out of where they currently are in front of the store. And you weren't going to do a major expansion of the property. And now you've looked at it and you think that you'd like to ask us, but to do that, you've got to take 2 single-family residences.
Correct.
And we're trying to expand residences in Glens Falls. Are you saying you can't do what your original plan was, or that you found something in following up on those plans that you didn't see before?
Yeah, it was really kind of driven by the intersection. When we started looking through the traffic data and analyzing that intersection, it's pretty apparent based on the traffic study with the data that we have that some improvements are going to be needed there at some point. And we think that the part of the solution is to have another lane right at the Sherman, the eastbound traffic on Sherman, either across Glen or either direction on Glen. And the original plan, Chuck can get into it, but the original plan with the gas pumps would have been a little closer to Sherman. That would have impacted our ability to basically keep a strip of land open for those future improvements, which we think at some point are coming.
when you say future improvements, widening, are you thinking
Yeah.
widening Sherman at that point? If the city will want to go ahead?
Yeah, I think it's probably best to let Mark Piscadlo from MJ just give you kind of a synopsis of what's going on. The current signal is operating at an F, E, and it's that way because the city's traffic operator, Mark Jarvis, has indicated the attenuation or actuation hasn't been operational in the 35 years he's been with the city. So what we're saying is in the short term, we'll fix the actuation, and then we'll be able, with the larger project, be able to set the land aside to incorporate the turn lane in the future and keep our improvements out of, for lack of better terms, your way. Go ahead, Mark.
Well, good evening. Mark Piscadlo, I'm from MJ Engineering. I'm a traffic engineering manager there. 32 years experience as a traffic engineer. We were hired by Stewart's Court to evaluate the existing intersection, and intersections capacity analysis are rated like a letter grade, A through F, level service, A being the best and F being the worst. Letters E and F are failing in the eyes of the traffic engineering world. The existing intersection in both the AM and PM peak hours are level service E. The signal is showing its age as well. There are no vehicle detection at all in the entire intersection. That's standard practice now. Every approach except for Sherman has a turn lane. For whatever reason, the signal operation is split where Sherman and Washington go separately. They do not get a green at the same time. The indications on the signal do not show that. Normally when you have a protected movement, there's a green left turn arrow or a green right turn arrow. There are no turn arrows on Sherman or Washington, so the signal is deficient in today's terms. We looked at alternatives to try to improve that, move off of that level service E incrementally. And the first thing that we looked at was putting vehicle detection in. And the old style of vehicle detection were loops in the pavements that would sense have a magnetic disturbance. They would sense a vehicle over the top of it. The latest technology that state DOT has moved to within the last 2 or 3 years is video detection. You put a camera up, and it's almost like a video game where you draw a box where you want the vehicle to be detected, and when those pixels are disturbed, that means there's a vehicle there, and the computer that's inside the signal can distribute green time more efficiently rather than the fixed time that's running today. So if you put it in as 30 seconds of green and in 10 seconds in the side road, it's going to run that every cycle whether there's a vehicle present or not. With detection, the computer will decide how much green goes up to the maximum time. So putting vehicle detection in gets you to a level service D in the AM and an E in the PM. We're still not there yet. So we looked at eliminating that split phasing on Washington and Sherman so that both phases will run together. And that almost gets you there. The overall level service is B in the AM and C in the PM. However, that Sherman approach is still level service E. So in order to get to where in the traffic engineering world it's an acceptable operation, we'd have to go and put a left turn lane in. More than 25% of the traffic makes a left. It makes sense to probably heading towards the Northway. It's 5 or 10% of the traffic makes a right. So it's more efficient to put a left turn lane in there. By adding the left turn lane in, getting rid of the split phasing, vehicle detection, we get to level service B in the AM and PM. So the existing signal is a poor operation. It's in poor physical shape as well. It's not compliant. At some point in the future, the city or somebody's going to need to replace that and get it up to speed. And I think that's why Stewart's is here today to demonstrate how they can help.
So if you were to take this plan to the planning board, are you showing a design where you're actually taking some of that land and then creating a turn signal, you'll be taking some of that corner in your plan?
Yes, so we literally just got this from MJ on, I think it was Friday. So, yeah, that's exactly what we'll do, is that we'll show the set aside on the north side of Sherman in the Stewart's lot where we won't build. So we'll extend the green space on that side so that the city has land in the future when it comes in to do the improvement. And in the short term, we'll work on the cheaper stuff from the signal perspective.
Yeah, well, we have money in our budget to replace 5 street signals in this coming year anyway, and we've only, I think, so far allocated 2 or 3 of those that are within it. So that the replacing of the street light would be the easier piece. But you're saying still it would wider if you widen that, which you could do if you're allowed to move to do the whole plan. Then we could widen the street and then to put the turn signal on the left turn signal.
I mean, yeah.
That's what you.
Well, understand. I mean, I think it would be. I think we have to review the numbers with MJ to see if that works. You know, if we're not doing just walk me through. I guess the short term. By the time we come, if we go to the planning board and come back, by the time we come back, we'll have an answer.
Gotcha.
I would also say this is a terrible intersection to walk through.
Yeah,
there's the lines go into the middle of the road.
Literally walk
right
it every
into-
morning.
Yeah,
for the
right
dog.
into where the catch basin is for
So here's
stormwater.
Yeah, and here's what's going to happen. We did this kind of not too quickly, but quickly enough. What'll end up happening is the store will slide all the way over to Bacon. So we'll have to get variances, which is not your purview, and I understand that. But we'll slide it all the way over. We'll probably lose a pump, and then in doing that, you'll have this area all through here that'll be preserved for the city's future use. I mean, I know they were here and I didn't get a chance, but we are, and it's not, we're not going to put it in the table. We are working with Crandall Park on a pollinator park. So we already said no, and that'll be probably in the back here.
So the idea is to leave space in case the city wants to add another lane or take some of the property, but you're saying we have money in the budget now for the street light?
For the light at least, and then we should probably adjust our sails and widen that street sooner than later.
I'm just wondering if we could partner on that effort.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm, yeah, no.
Yeah.
I can, I just don't know the extent. We did kind of like a back of the napkin. We'd have to go a little bit further than back of the napkin. But I think that, you know, we've always been in the city. We've always been in the location. We're looking to invest and stay.
Yeah.
So we'll figure out something, and we'll come back with a proposal. But I do think the planning board component's a significant piece.
Right.
Yeah, we can look at that.
So, just for me to understand this, if this doesn't happen, if we can't, how are you going to adjust how your flow of traffic is in and out of that building if things don't come in alignment?
Yeah, if they don't come into alignment, then we have a separate set of calculus to do, and that one is going back to the original proposal, which is the gas along Sherman, and then should the city find the money and want to do the project, at that point it would be more impactful on the Stewart's plan.
Well, I mean, that intersection is a critical intersection in the city. There's a lot of activity there from a business standpoint, and traffic flow with the schools right down the street. So I think it's important that we partner with you guys to try to come up with a solution to accommodate our concerns, our traffic concerns, our safety concerns, and things like that, as well as your business concerns.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this gets to pedestrian actuation, the push buttons and all the bells and whistles that I think I understand Mr. Fuller is privy to his diagonal crosswalk that doesn't connect to anything really, but this might be an opportunity. That might be an opportunity to actually to fix all the pieces.
I can't believe 1950s technology isn't enough for.
You literally have to run.
No, it's.
I just have a quick question, so that I understand it. So what's causing you to buy those 2 parcels on Bacon Street? Is this revision where you're going to shift that?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, it's a better overall project for us too. I mean, we got a new store versus, kind of Band-Aids on the existing situation. But we don't think it's appropriate with the level of service we see to put more activity on that side street.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
But is it possible that if we decide to move forward with this and replace the traffic light, you could include other changes in your project?
Yeah, that is where I'm going with this. I just, like I said, we hired them, they came back with this, and just the way, like the things you guys, the contracts and the design stuff, we wanted to get at least this process going we know we need the county and the city planning board referrals. And when we come back for the public hearing and the assessment, we'll have those pieces incorporated so we have a full-blown, this is what it'll actually look like.
Yeah, I think we have a good opportunity here now, hearing back the intersection stuff too. Our wheels are spinning right now. We can come up with something.
Great.
Thank you. Is the council comfortable with referring this to the planning board for their opinion?
We have to put it on the next agenda.
Put it on the next week. Put it on next week's or next council agenda. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, moving on, we'll go to committee reports. Councilman Clark. Councilman Donahue, committee report. I guess you've got Mr. Flagg coming up to talk to us.
He's coming right up.
All right.
It's kind of funny because I told the same one on mine that he gave me.
All right.
Yeah. In August 2022, the city began working with the New York Power Authority to evaluate economic, technical viability of solar projects located on properties located in the city of Glens Falls and on city-owned property in the town of Queensbury. NIPA analysis of sites around City Town Street, in particular that appeared viable for solar PV development. First was Glens Falls City Landfill on Reserve Road, a DEC-owned landfill's site adjacent to the city landfill, and the pool insuring arena. After working with NIPA for roughly a year, last August, the city formally committed to working with NIPA on development of solar PV projects located in these sites, and authorized NIPA to issue a request for proposals so to identify vendors qualified to develop these projects.
All right. Let me embellish just a little bit. So the Sustainability Committee has been working on this for a long time, and in fact, some of you in the Special Projects Committee, I think we actually touched on this going back. So we're going back at least one administration, maybe even two, before we started. So it's great to be finally getting some real motion on this. We decided to work with NIPA on this project for a number of reasons. One, we had really good success through a very lengthy, sort of tedious process with the streetlight conversion that we completed during COVID, of all things. We were also interested in looking at a DEC-owned property that's adjacent to the city-owned landfill. And we thought, I think accurately, that NIPA would have a little better time navigating the state agency waters to try and sort of gain control of this. And worthwhile because we want to incorporate this into our larger project. This is a parcel that is on Luzerne Road, just to the southeast of the city's own landfill. And maybe just importantly, we wanted to look at several different ownership strategies and cast sort of as wide a net as we could as far as getting proposals. So that's one of the reasons, among the reasons I should say, that we decided to work with NIPA after a lengthy sort of vetting process. And I have Ben Pozo from NIPA here, should I need it. Thanks, Ben. So we're looking at these 3 parcels, the 2 landfills, or brownfield sites anyway, and then the roof of the Civic Center. The 3 ownership proposals we're looking at were a power purchase agreement, and those of you who were involved with the proposal years ago on the Sherman Road leaf dump will remember that's simply where developer comes in, builds a project, the city, the entity agrees they get a contract to buy the power at a fixed rate for a given period of time. That's been the sort of the traditional model, and I say traditional, the last 15 or 20 years. More recent model we wanted to look at was a community solar model. The council may be familiar with the fact that we are presently engaged in a community CDG, community hydro model. This would sort of dovetail that sort of nicely, and we can get into that if we need to a little bit later. But in that model, the city would simply lease the property in return for payments over a fixed period of time. We would forsake any kind of maintenance costs of the properties. I'm speaking of the landfills at this point. And then we would also have the opportunity to get a discount on the city's electric bill, typically a 10% discount. We also wanted to look at a third model, which was essentially a capital project model, where the city would purchase and own the facility. That seemed like a heavy lift from the very get-go. We wanted to look at that because there were certain changes in the IRA, particularly the Inflation Reduction Act, which allowed non-tax-paying entities to capture some of the gains that were heretofore unavailable. So we didn't want to foreclose on that possibility. Working with NIPA, we came up with a proposal with the Sustainability Committee. We ended up getting 7 proposals. Of those, sort of the vetting process, we pretty easily, and I say I was working with a team from NIPA, about 5 or 6 people, I think, that were on the sort of the selection process that I was working with. Maybe there were others involved. But of the 7, 3 were sort of discounted pretty easily. The first process really was to look at who was the most competitive, if there was any competitive, in each of those 3 models. And then once we looked at that, we said, well, which of these 3 models would be the most competitive? And what we ended up coming up with after not just the initial vetting, but also interviews with 4 of the vendors was a pretty clear choice. Until we have an agreement, I can't give you the details of the names of each one, but what I can tell you, you'll have a resolution and the information here to make this decision before the next council meeting. But essentially, we chose a selection that has a clear advantage over all the others. It was a community solar proposal, which I think is probably the simplest administratively from the city's perspective anyway, right? It has the city will lease the property, the properties, in the case of the 2 landfills, and then get the lease payments, eliminate whatever maintenance costs there are, and then presumably, although not required, presumably become the anchor tenant and get these discounts. The one area that we're still going to work with the developer is they had actually given a reasonable price for a PPA for the Civic Center. And so it's very possible, and we did look at these as discrete proposals so that they could be sort of separated and looked at differently. And it looks as if there is an avenue for the Civic Center, it will be for a PPA for the Civic Center. The selected proposal met all the requirements they were looking for, we were looking for. It'll give the city fixed revenue over a long period of time, presumably about 25 years. The proposal that was recommended was comfortably conservative in its evaluation, that we believe, even if there are some changes between now and when it finally is, the ink is signed, that there's still room for this to be a competitive, viable proposal. We also left open the opportunity to negotiate some, what I would call add-ons, and the Sustainability Committee knows we've talked over the last couple of years about some things, because the city landfill in particular is right on the Northway, the opportunity to do some sort of creative maintenance, let's call it, right? Whether that is solar grazing, where you bring in animals to sort of graze around the panels, whether you put pollinator gardens or honeybee apiaries, honeybee facilities in them. So, we wanted to give ourselves a little bit of leeway in case some of these things may actually cost more than just going and mowing them, but it would give the city what I think is some sort of visibility advantages, right? As people are going by the Northway, one of the things we're trying to do is to sort of present the city's sort of environmental bona fides as far as being a sort of a gateway to the Adirondacks. So we'll work through those. We will have in the next council meeting, there'll be a resolution for the council to look at. We'll have these proposals to review in the meantime, and then we'll hope that the council will be able to vote on this, and we'll move forward finally with this project, which has been a long time coming.
So the model that we're looking at would lease it, we wouldn't be at risk if the top of the landfill is damaged, the person leasing it is responsible for it. We would get a lease, we get an annual fee for leasing out these two sites, one of which we don't even own. So it's awful nice for the state and NIPA to help us with this. We generate a 10% discount on the electric produced, but it wouldn't be our electric because we're leasing it out. So we lease turn these two properties into generating revenue for the city. And again, at the end of the term, if they don't wish to continue that, they can take their solar panels and go home, and the facility is back to the same state it is with us. So it's not as lucrative as if we wanted to spend millions of dollars on this, but then that all risk would be ours as opposed to that. And so they've narrowed it down to one selection. Jeff's asking if you're okay with that, so that we can go ahead and move forward and get you the referral for proposal that looks the best to the team. Okay. Anybody questions?
Yeah, I think one of the other things we are missing is that we reduce our expenses to the landfill.
Correct, the maintenance expenses, yeah.
So that, and I know that's a big expense in there.
Yeah, it's not just a decimal point. Great. Thank you, folks.
Thanks, Jack.
Thank you. Committee reports, Councilman Landry.
No report.
Councilwoman Dunn, or Palmer, I'm sorry. Jeez, I apologize.
Building and Codes will meet on the 17th. We will have a presentation on the software program that our code enforcement officer is looking for us to consider changing to. So that's what we're going to be focusing on. For recreation, Amy Collins and I went to DPW to meet with Tom Gerard and Dean and Mark to talk about the Murray Street Fieldhouse. We've been going back and forth as I've reported that we're trying to work on all our field houses and bathrooms. Should we tear it down? Should we just fix it? And what we're thinking at this point is that we'd like to kind of model it off the Montcalm structure, but make it bigger, so that it would be more of a pavilion that could be rented, and then there would be bathrooms that would be outward facing, so you don't have to go into the structure to get to the bathrooms. And DPW thinks they can do some of that themselves, and some of it we might have to get some quotes for, so that team is working on that. We also talked about, we had a request from the lacrosse team at the high school to put up a wall at Murray Street so that they can practice off of the wall. And so I was asking DPW, is that something they can help us build? Do they know a place to get materials? So they're researching that as well. We're going to be meeting, I think it's the 16th. I'm sorry, I'm going to double check. Yes, the 16th, next week at 1 o'clock. We'll get updates on the numbers that are coming back on these things, and also continue planning our Memorial Day event. I created kind of an Excel spreadsheet for us to keep everything organized, and we'll start filling in who all our volunteers are, and hopefully be able to release that information to the community soon. That's it.
Thank you. Councilman Lapp.
The tech committee met last Wednesday. We talked about Orville Fire. They had some recommendations that we passed along to the mayor's office. And I think they're looking for Chip to follow up with them, depending on which way, which we go with that.
Was there a clear recommendation?
There's a tier of 3 recommended things to go for that are in priority order.
Got it, thank you.
Yep. There's website update is coming along. Chip's on that. He also gave us an update on C-Click Fix, and that should be in the next kind of couple of months here. He said it's one of the things on the agenda is getting the ruggedized tablets, which would be part of the C-Click Fix implementation. So we will be voting on that shortly. We also got a roadmap for IT from Stored Tech, and they're just looking for some feedback on that. So hopefully Chip will be coming to you with that, as he has done with it. We got an update on cameras in parks. There's, I guess, one place that needed to be trenched in Crandall Park. It might even be done by now. And then a spot down by the river at Evans Cove. And I guess there was an additional camera added in where there wasn't quite coverage at one spot. I think that might have been Montcalm even.
No, that was Sagamore.
Oh, Sagamore.
That
Yeah.
far corner, the new fence from the renewed courts blocked that camera from seeing that one problem corner in Sagamore. And then there was a fake social media post for that corner. And so we want to make sure that we get in there and stop people from, creating havoc, creating panic. So, thank you.
And just for Jim, no update on the franchise agreement.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilwoman Gooden, committee reports. Under voice vote, we have 2 resolutions. One is a resolution to approve the minutes of March 26, 2024 meeting of the Glens Falls County Council. 2 is a resolution to approve the clerk's March monthly and PVB report. Do we have a motion for voice vote?
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Under roll call vote, are there any resolutions the council would like to pull for discussion? Not hearing any, we'll go roll call vote. Item number 3, resolution to increase the revenue line A009999-1589 miscellaneous public safety income by $5,949.26, and to increase budget expense line A23126-1100 police department overtime by $5,949.26. 4 is a resolution authorizing the City of Glens Falls Community Development manual payments in the amount of $14,461.11 to support engineering work in a CBG eligible area ahead of infrastructure project. Reimburse the city for a portion of the CD director's salary to administer the CBG grant, and to pay CT Mal for certain administrative service in support of the city's use of CBG funding, and for partial payment of administrative work related to delivering home rehabilitation projects per the contract. 5 is a resolution to approve an encroachment permit for Dorothy McClough, owner of tax map number 309-11-9, commonly known as 39 Murray Street, for a curb cut at that location with a favorable advisory opinion from the Glens Falls Planning Board given at the meeting of April 2nd, 2024. 6 is a resolution that the Common Council awards bid CGF 23-12 wastewater treatment plant aeration tank maintenance to Alder Industrial Services, Inc. in the amount of $55,596, and authorize the mayor to enter into a contract approved by the city attorney. 7, a resolution the Common Council awards bid CGF 24-02 blended sludge grinder and motor control to GP Yeager, Inc. in the amount of $27,855.04, and authorize the mayor to enter into contract approved by the city attorney. 8 is a resolution to approve mobile food unit license application renewal number 7-2024 from Michael Del Signor, DBA Mr. Dingaling Ice Cream Truck, 22 Mohawk Street, Glens Falls, New York, for a 2024 seasonal 6-month mobile food license to operate an ice cream truck in the city of Glens Falls from April 10, 2024 through October 10, 2024. 9 is a resolution to approve the Common Council hereby approves mobile food unit license application renewal 8-2024 for weekly licenses from Kevin O'Brien, DBA Glens Falls Rotary Club Foundation, 34 McEachran Lane, Queensbury, New York, to operate a mobile food unit for the Lyric Arts Festival in City Park from June 8th and 9th, 2024 for Glens Falls Symphony Concert in Crandall Park on July 3rd, 2024, and for the Adirondack Balloon Festival in Crandall Park September 19th, 2024. 10 is a resolution to approve encroachment permit number 10-2024 as approved by Mayor Collins on March 19, 2024, subject to retroactive Common Council approval per City Code 189-19B, National Grid, for 1125 Broadway, Manans, to allow for street openings through Park Street, between Elm Street and School Street, and between Hudson Avenue and Dead End, to complete replacement of a gas main from March 19, 2024 through April 19, 2024 with city standard requirements. Permit number 9, 2024 is subject to prevailing wages requirements of Article 8 New York State Labor Law and Roadway Excavation Quality Assurance Act. 11 is a resolution to increase revenue line A009999-4089 Government Aid ARPA by $5,099.23 to increase A1121-4479 Mayor and other contracted services by $5,099.23 to purchase 6 Samsung Galaxy rugged tablets to be used with the C-Click Fix application and to fund monthly user fee of $25 per unit per month till the end of fiscal year 2024. 12 is a resolution to decrease A11990-9000 contingency other funds by $682.40 and increase A23120-4488 police petty cash by $682.40 to reimburse police officer John Norton for damages to his personal vehicle sustained while in commission of his sworn duties as a police officer. Breakdown is as follows. 500 insurance deductible and $182.40 for a rental vehicle reimbursed for a grand total of $682.40. 13 is a resolution to approve the warrant. Do we have a motion for roll call vote?
So moved.
Do we have a second? Second. Roll call vote, please.
Councilman Clark?
Yes.
Councilman Donahue?
Yes.
Councilman Landry?
Yes.
Councilwoman Farmer?
Yes.
Councilman Randall?
Yes.
And Councilman Goodman?
Yes.
Thank you. Under old business, do we have anything? Councilman Clark?
I have no business.
On old business, Councilman Donahue?
No, just me getting over it.
No, all right. Mr. Landry?
Yes, Mayor, quick question. 3+1, remember we met with them, they were gonna give us when we passed the resolution. I'm just curious, if you don't have it tonight, maybe the next time, you can kind of bring us up to date as to where they are.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Palmer, old business, please.
I have no old business.
Councilman Lappin, old business.
I got a kind of a letter from somebody who is, and this has come up, I think, in the past too, about problems with homeless people in the Clinton Avenue garage, and just what we might be doing to dissuade them from settling and then camping in there. I can forward that along to you to the email.
Yeah, I actually got the email and reached out to Chief, the person who made the complaint. We sent somebody over right away. There was nobody there. We encourage them to call us anytime they see somebody there, and I can pass that report on to you. I just got it moments before coming in to follow up on it, because it's important, right? We lease, well, we don't lease. We have control over the bottom floor of that, and And that is a favorite place for people, so I don't doubt at all that he saw somebody, but they must have saw that he saw them and skedaddled. So we definitely, and they've got it now on the blotter to travel more frequently and see if we can help whoever's there. But it's this weird kind of underhang where they can kind of climb up and get shelter on a cold or windy night. So it's definitely, thank you. I'll send you that report, okay?
Yep, and one more thing, I was just curious where we were with being, you know, of the suggestion to, you know, be able to fly different flags in City Park.
Yeah, I'll bring it up under new business.
Okay.
Thank you. Councilwoman Good, old business. No old business. New business, Councilman Clark.
I have none.
Councilman Donahue.
Nothing to say.
Councilman Landry.
Sure. Just an interesting day yesterday. I've been around for a little while. I took a ride up in the Adirondacks to see, I wanted to be where there was a full eclipse. I've never seen the stars come out at 3:30 in the afternoon. It's the most amazing thing I've ever seen in my life. It took us an hour and a half to get up, took 4.5 hours to get back. Actually met somebody along the way who, when I tell everybody I'm from Glens Falls, I told them I was from Glens Falls, they said, we're from New Jersey, and we couldn't find any place to stay up here in the Adirondacks. We're at the Queensbury Hotel, and I hope they come back along, so that's a great thing. Just a little update on the Glens Falls Swim and Tennis Club property. We're working closely with Warren County Soil and Water. They've suggested that we take a look at having a phase 2 environmental done over there, because there are some issues of concern. There may be some lead-based paint in some of the old steel doors. There's some pool chemicals that look like they've deteriorated over the years. There's possibly some contaminated water. So I'll be talking to Pat Dow about that. At the same time, the city reached out and has DEC coming May 2nd to do a wetland delineation over there, so we know what property is available for us to be able to do things. Once we get that done, we hope to move forward and work with the city to get a concept plan put together for the property. Just a reminder, Glens Falls Collaborative holding their cleanup downtown on April 20th from 9 to 11. It's a good cause, it's a lot of fun, and they did it before. They could use all the help they could get, so come on down on the 20th. I'd also like to thank the DPW for getting the pickup started a little early. You know, been an interesting winter. I commend them for, you know, the snowstorms we've had here at the end of the season. They did a great job in getting those cleaned up. And now I hope we can get local properties cleaned up and get that debris taken away. So thanks to the DPW. That's all.
Thank you. Councilwoman Palmer, new business.
Yes, I wanted to follow up on the discussion I started last council meeting about weed. So just to remind everyone, it's law enforcement assisted diversion. It's something we had talked about during our police reform process. So our social worker and police chief and I met with the lead bureau and some people who are working in lead in other communities to kind of talk about how do you get this started, who needs to be involved, what would be next steps, and we realized we're kind of in the infancy of this, and we would need to do kind of a lot of things to decide about the viability, but our next step would be to get a meeting together with stakeholders from the community. So typically that would be like the prosecutor's office, the public defender's office, the county mental health, maybe the county department of health, the mayor's office, but various other people. I have a list of how this works in other communities and what roles each of those agencies play. So I have a date that the lead bureau would be available to meet with us, and I know that it works for our police chief and our social worker. So I was wondering how people felt about trying to set up a meeting like that and invite the stakeholders from the area, just because it really doesn't work unless we have buy-in from all of those entities. so we kind of need everyone at the table, and it would be helpful if the lead bureau was there to explain it to everyone at the same time.
Sure. I think that, so kind of like a workshop, invite other constituents or groups as well specifically?
The specific groups they mentioned, like I said, some of them were on the police reform committee, so like someone from the prosecutor's office, someone from the public defender's office, someone from county health and mental health. You know, I have a list of all the various people, but even someone from the business community, because they can be they can make referrals to the LEAD program. And if we got everyone together and we all heard the information at the same time and discussed, you know, the viability of it in our community with the resources we have, I think that would be a good next step. So it doesn't have to be this date, but the date that LEAD and the police chief and the social worker and I were all available. It was 4/29 at 10 a.m. So before reaching out to all of these people, I wanted to check with you, Mayor, and also the rest of the council to see if people are interested in us pursuing that.
Well, we certainly are interested in pursuing it. And so maybe in the evening, would you think? Or during the day?
It was 10 a.m. was the time that the LEAD people were available, because they're kind of the person, Brendan, he comes from Albany, and that was the time he gave us. That also Darlene and the police chief were available. So
okay. So that would be fine for me. I would probably have to meet in the hallway because our auditors are in town all week and have the mayor's conference room booked. But that's all right. We can, we'll probably have more people than can fit in the conference room as well. So. You want to, Chief has that time too, and so just get it from him. You want me to have Bernie send out an invite, or do you want to do it?
Either way, I could reply to the people that were on our police reform list, or I could email them individually, or if you want Bernie to do it. But I wanted to get that out there as soon as possible so I can confirm the date.
I think if Bernie did it that way, if some of us couldn't be there in person, we could be there via Teams.
We'll just have to, can we roll the video out to the hallway so we can do that?
Okay.
Yeah.
So let me work on that and then send you the potential list and then have you add to it anybody you were thinking in particular. How's that?
That sounds great. Thank you.
I'll make sure I got this. Monday, April 29th, 10 a.m. Seemed to be good for the LEAD folks.
Sorry, let me pull it back.
No, I'm sorry.
That's not what I said. Okay, yes, 4/29, 10 a.m.
Awesome. Okay. Great news. Councilman Lappin, we are on new business, please.
Nothing to report.
And Councilwoman Good, new business to report. Okay, I've got 4 items for you. Let's see. So I sent you all an email this morning about the comprehensive plan, and wanted to, just in case you didn't see that email, wanted to give you all that same information that I sent. So it's a copy of the RFP that was drafted by the with the help of Department of State. And then an email, so 1, 2, 3, good. There you go there. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3 down there. So specifically asking you to nominate someone to be on the planning committee. Also giving you a copy of the RFP as it was developed with the Department of State and Pat and Jeff working together. So any comments that you have, questions, things you might want added to the RFP. The RFP is the beginning of the step of working to find excuse me 1 second, I'm trying to find my place here. To find a contractor that can help us with the contract, the comprehensive plan, And then the other is to be members on the comprehensive plan. It suggests in here, and I'll let you look at it and ask me any questions you've got, but it suggests in here that, again, where the RFP is for the consultant for the procurement process, and then an organizing a planning committee. It's suggested in the Department of State grant that both the planning board and the zoning board have a presence. So I went and reached out to Ethan Hall, and it says it in here, Rachel Murray, and then to Allison Hargraves Gaddy and Matt McDonald to be on that committee. And so now looking for you guys to add anybody that you'd like to it. And so we can talk about this in the future, but I want to make sure you had it. And I sent you an email, but wanted you to make sure you had it in person to take any comments and questions. In the end of the document, I suggest what I think there's 14, I think, from the Department of State topics or that you have to touch on in your comprehensive plan. I highlighted ones that I thought should be included, but I knew you'd want to add anything you think would be important to add into this as well. So there you go.
So you want us to email you our comments?
I do. And then maybe 3 weeks, long enough to have you nominate somebody from your wards who might be able to meet. There's about a 16-month to 18-month process. It's all laid out there. It was in the application. So it'd be somebody who can attend at least once a month for that period of time and work with this consultant.
Mayor, will you have an extra copy of this?
Absolutely, yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm sorry I didn't.
That's all right. I just have.
Oh, it didn't have the RFP in the back? In your copy? Sorry. So that was one. Sorry.
So you want our thoughts on this and a name by the 23rd?
That's correct. Any thoughts on it? Any topics you might want to add? If you want to be part of the selection process for the procurement, let me know and we'll make sure you get invites, Outlook invites to those meetings. Anything at all. Anything you think is missing, there's big subject matter that you'd like added. And you can find all of the DOSs in that RFP, the list of all the topics that the DOS says we have to cover. It pretty much is an extensive list. But certainly add anything else you might want to add.
And this is just initially the core group that we're asking, and then there could be splinter groups.
Yeah, subcommittees, absolutely.
Okay, good.
We'll let them, that committee and the contractor lead it forward. Earth Day is April 20th, City Park. I invite everybody to attend if you can. Wanted to let you know that the Board of Public Safety chose Aaron Worf as the person to take to be the fire prevention officer, replacing the retired John Pagano, sorry, shame on me. So I wanted you to know that should be starting in a few weeks. And then I also, I'll be out of town the 19th through the 22nd this month. Councilman Clark will be acting mayor while I'm in New Jersey with my wife. And then the last one would be the flagpole discussion. So the City of Glens Falls owns and maintains 11 flagpoles throughout the city. There is no history or practice of flying any flag but the U.S. flag, POW, MIA flag, on any of those 11 flagpoles. In practice, the city has always followed the display rules of the federal and state governments with regard to the method of display. The city has also authorized half-staff displays in addition to the federal and state mandated ones for significant events or deaths of significant citizens. I want to take a moment to thank Cam Cardinal and his group for raising this question. It's helped me to understand that the city has had serious vulnerability. Recent questions across the country in the case of the Supreme Court involving the city of Boston indicate the need for a clear policy, not just for flags, but also for our city banners. In Shutliff versus City of Boston, the justices found that since the City of Boston had implicit policy that simply honored all citizen flag requests, denying the complainant's request was a violation of the First Amendment. The city had created a public forum and so had no grounds to deny any request. In the wake of that decision in the Boston case, it's clear that our city needs to clarify and affirm that flagpoles, banner sites on city property are sites for government speech and not public forums, and therefore not subject to the First Amendment challenges. If we do not make that affirmation, we forfeit control over what is displayed. To protect the city, we need to codify a flag policy and a banner policy to ensure that the public understands that the 11 flagpole locations and the banner location are sites for government speech. In my understanding, it appears that we have three options. Codify our historical practice, which affirms that the flagpole is a site for government speech, fly only the U.S. flag, POW, MIA flag, the state flag, or the city flag if we should develop one, and follow the national and state requirements. Another option is to install a separate dedicated flagpole in the city for community or commemorative flags. I affirm that we need to affirm that this is the site for government speech, create a policy with a clear, unambiguous, and neutral procedure to select certain flags. That procedure would have to include a nomination from a council member and a debate and a vote on every flag request. Another option is to allow commemorative flags to fly on the same flagpoles as the government flags, affirming that that site is for government speech. We create a policy with a clear, unambiguous, neutral procedure to select the flags. That procedure also would have to include a nomination from a council member, a debate, and a vote on every flag request. I'm concerned that the procedure of the sort required by options 2 and 3 would invite unnecessary controversy. It would put the council in a position to endorse one group over another. It would indeed breed rancor. I support the first option of strict limits codifying our current practice of flying flags as government speech and fly only the U.S. flag, the state flag, the POW flag, and perhaps a city future flag, as well as any that might be required by state or federal mandates in the future. I believe that my job, really all of our jobs, is to manage the city business competently and completely without introducing controversy. As I said in my most recent State of the City speech, that local government is all about collaboration, cooperation, and service, not making statements. We want to be welcoming, inclusive, and transparent. I think it's also important to note that no matter how honorable the mission of an organization is, that I don't believe that city government wants to be endorsing select community organizations as we would be if we flew commemorative flags. I believe that in the end, we would be doing is courting controversy, setting up division and argument over flags. It's not about the current request. The issue is bigger than just one organization and one flag request. In option 1, the U.S. POW MIA flags are not controversial, and in practice, we've been flying them on city-owned flagpoles for decades. We have a New York State flag displayed in the mayor's conference room, along with the U.S. flag, and the pair has been in place for decades. Again, codifying these practices will not be controversial. But let's consider some of the other possibilities we go down to the road in creating a separate flagpole for community speech, or putting those flags on any of the city's 11 flagpoles as government speech. I don't believe the problem will come from fringe requests. No council member would ever forward an approval for a neo-Nazi or Confederate flag, as I gave the example just a few weeks ago, especially since the state law now forbids flying of symbols of hate. That's the municipal law 99-X. The discussions and debates that are much less fringe would most likely become the painful ones. For example, there are people in our city whom vegetarianism and animal rights are very important. If a local resident who's a member of, say, PETA wants that organization's flag flown, the idea may have some support in our city. Others may vehemently oppose it. It's not difficult to imagine the parallel scenarios of a variety of directions, political persuasions, and points of view in an effort to promote one viewpoint or another. In those instances, what seems likely to happen are bitter and time-consuming debates over subjects, important subjects maybe, but outside the city's scope of influence. One thing I have learned in the past 2 years is that the stock of goodwill in the community evaporates quickly if citizens think the government is wasting time, money, or both. I believe that municipal governments have duties and responsibilities that focus on practical, on-the-ground decisions. We envision our future for sure, but we also need to make sure that the streetlights are working, the streets are well cared for, the sidewalks are clear for public use, and that we keep projects running to make the community, our community, a better place to live. By all of this, I mean that municipal government speech, in my opinion, is not best expressed symbolically on flagpoles. It is best expressed in physical terms, like marching in parades or speaking at these events in support of these organizations, of these community groups that we all support and love. For all these reasons, I believe that option 1, codifying our current practices, is the best way for Glens Falls to go. I'll now open up for comment. Anybody on the council would like to talk about this issue? We'll start with you, Councilman Clark, if you don't mind, and just go around the room.
I don't have any comments at this time. I would love to digest your comments first before I make any type of statement. So if you could share that with us, that would be helpful. So,
sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Councilman Donnie.
I think I go along with what you're talking about.
Thank you.
Federal, state.
Current practice.
Exactly.
Okay. Councilman Mike?
It's interesting. We really hadn't talked about this a lot outside of this council chamber, but just like all of us, I get calls from constituents. And also being retired and I walk around the second ward a lot, I talk to a lot of people. And there's really mixed views about this. And I think that the mixed views come to the surface because of the toxic political environment that we're living in today. And just the discussions almost pit side against side. You know, where do you stop? And I don't mean this for any other reason, I don't endorse this organization, but you know, if the National Rifle Association wants to put a flag up, and I get a bunch of constituents who support them in my ward, and they call me up and they say, we want you to nominate them, and then the council doesn't do that, but someone else can come forward and say, well, I'd like to see this flag flown, and have it get approved, to me doesn't create much unity within a community. I'm not sure where I'm at with this. I have deep respect for the American flag. I think that the only flags that should be on a flagpole that the American flag is flying on are government flags. And with that being said, I think I do align myself in general with what the mayor's talking about to codify these flags, and then come up with some options, other locations where we could have other flag poles for those specific things, those specific organizations that want to fly them. To me, that's more palatable, and I think it would sit better with my constituents. So speaking for my constituents, I think I'd like to codify where the American flag flies in this issue.
Thank you. Councilman McConnell.
So, just so I'm clear, because I was trying to take in everything you were saying. Sure. Bob, what you're talking about, I think that wasn't option 1, that was option maybe 2 or 3, where you were saying we would create a policy where you could hang flags on a different flagpole, right?
Yeah.
But you're suggesting you would prefer us to not do that at all, because even doing that could create controversy.
So if we were to consider any flags, whether it be on one of the 11 flags in the city, or let's say we created a new one, I know I suggested a few weeks ago, what I realized that if we did do that, which we could do, I've actually drafted policies for all 3 options, and I'll pass them out to you so that you can look at all 3, and also a banner policy that this brought to my attendance, that we needed to rewrite our banner policy, that we're also at risk right now of denying somebody without a clear policy. So I drafted them all, and I'll send them on. But it appears that if we did create, whether it was on one of ours or on a new flag, that it would be, because we'd have to designate that as government speech, that one of the council members would have to nominate that group. So pick a group, maybe the NRA, it could be PETA, doesn't matter, right? Whatever that group is, somebody from the council would have to make that suggestion, and then we'd have to vote. And so by doing that, that seems to me as though the day we vote no against any group, or we have a split vote, that in itself would draw controversy. But that's just my opinion, and it's for you to consider. I'm just telling you how I felt. I wanted to stay out of it, and when I realized that any flag, if we allow any flag up, that we're then voting on what group to do it or not, and then therefore, if there's a group that maybe some of us feel positive about and some of us not so positive, now I'm voting on a community group, and that's just I believe it would be controversial. Whatever group we ever had to say no to, no matter who they were, would be marching in the streets. And therefore, I don't know that it's worth it. Anyway, there you go. Sorry.
If I can, Dan, I appreciate it. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. I guess I don't understand why there would be a need, if we had a flagpole that was designated for organizations to fly their flag, why that has to come before the council.
Because
is it required?
Because it's a government. You'd have to say it's government speech. If not, and you allow a community group too, then it is verified for the First Amendment, and then you don't have any control. You'd have to allow any group to fly.
But we allow groups to put a banner across Glens Street.
And we have vulnerability there, I believe.
Yeah, that was my point. Yes.
That was in the article that I sent all of you to read. Yeah. So, I want to see what you have written down and all the options. I agree with Bob in his first point that I don't think it needs to be on the flagpole with the American flag. I don't know that I think it's so problematic to have another flag where we could support not an organization like you said, but something like something that's a nationally recognized, like Women's History Month, Pride Month, Black History Month. Those are not controversial in my mind. I think those are like celebrated by everybody.
Sure.
That's my feeling. And if it is controversial, I don't know if it's our job to avoid having to make decisions just because not everybody will like them. So I want to read what you wrote and digest it as well.
Sure.
I don't think that it needs to be on the same flagpole as the American flag. I think a separate flag where it was for kind of nationally recognized holiday, what's the word I'm looking for? It's not a holiday, but like Women's History Month,
sure.
Black History Month. These are not, to me, this is not
marking an occasion.
Doesn't seem controversial. It seems universally accepted, but those are my initial thoughts.
Sure.
Yeah.
And just finding a way to then having that. Well, let's say there was one that there was not a controversy, a concern. We'd have to vote, and so therefore it may become. That's my point. That's great. I'll share it with you and take a look. It's up to you. And if that's what the council feels, then we could definitely create a separate flagpole. We do have a particular park that's being developed right now by the bid, right? We could put a flagpole there, or we could ask one of the community groups if they could help raise some money, and we could put a flagpole there. There you go. So,
I mean, I I don't know, if we were to create a policy, I might even be interested to go as far as to say we wouldn't endorse like a specific group, right? Like to say this flag is for this group that exists as much as, like I said, for example, Women's History Month isn't a flag of a specific women's group, right? It would be, do you see what I'm saying? Like something where we're saying we're not going to hang a flag of a private group like the NRA or something like that. I think that might protect us or insulate us a little bit.
Clarifying what applications would be acceptable.
Yeah, I would just like to see the policies.
Sure.
Yeah, I want to take a look at it, but I wouldn't want to get into a situation where we're picking a group that exists in the community over another. I don't think any of us would want that. So if there was a way to fine tune that.
Well, the banners, it's first come, first served, so, you know, I would.
We need to fix it,
Yeah,
yeah.
so again.
I've got a draft for you.
Yeah, so, thank you. Thank you for doing that, Mayor.
Thank you. It's a great conversation.
It's a place to start.
Councilman?
I feel like there's a number of times, Ed, I was just talking. Okay. I feel that there's a number of times that the city is doing some sort of activity where there's other flags than the United States flag and New York State flag present. There could be like Red Cross flag sometimes in some places. Special Olympics had their own flag when we had some gatherings.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that saying that this is the only thing that's been part of the policy is a bit of a stretch.
It's not, and I think pull that the 11 that we maintain, Ben, we can't find anybody. I've asked every department head, we can't find any, but that doesn't mean I agree with you. Special Olympics is one of those groups that could not fly a flag if you chose that strict policy, but they can fly their own, they can bring flags for sure. Absolutely, that would be great. No, but go ahead, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, I apologize.
So I'm just saying that I don't see a problem with having the council be able to weigh in on different opportunities where people are looking to display their flag, like the Special Olympics, like the Red Cross, like other groups that have flags that use those. So that to me does not seem like that is a big stretch for doing this policy. And I think that, sometimes it's okay to have a little bit of controversy, and running away from it does not make you a better person.
Thank you. Councilwoman Good.
Well, I think while I was listening to you, Mayor, I too would like to read your what you had written down, because after listening to you, I will have been thinking. But I think my thought is like a lot of viewers. It's the American flag the poles are the American flags. But I do feel that if there's some way that we can write some sort of policy, make it clear that, it couldn't go on those 11 poles, but if we could find a place for another pole with a policy, and I think it has to be a kind of a strict policy, because I know as a member of this community, I would not want to have just any old flag hanging. It has to be a flag of meaning that we are all in agreement with. So I'm not opposed. I'm not opposed at all, but I would like to see your proposal. That the first one, I'd like to just read them over a little better.
Absolutely. Thank you. I believe that's it for new business, but we need to open up to, if nobody else has any comment about that from the council, we can open up our public comment period, if that's okay.
Hi, Ken Parnelli. Good, how are you?
Good, thanks.
Just 2 points I want to bring up as clarification from your statement.
Well, sure.
One, we are an organization, but we are not requesting our logo to be put on a flag.
Okay.
We are requesting a pride flag, which is nationally recognized, put up by hundreds of cities across the nation, put up in Washington, D.C., here at the state capitol. We're not putting our organization logo up. We're putting a pride flag up. I just want to clarify that's two different things, as you keep saying a group's flag. It's not our flag.
It's not a group's flag?
No, it's a nationally recognized pride flag.
Okay.
It's not our organization's logo that we're putting up on a flag.
Okay.
And then my second point is, if we move away from a flag put at City Hall, that's lessening the value of putting a pride flag up. It's not showing that the city is supportive. It's just a flag in the middle of a park. So, just my 2 points. Thank you.
Thank you.
So Cam, if the council votes to approve hanging a flag that doesn't have the same meaning, if the council votes to hang that flag, it doesn't have the same meaning?
It's a step in the right direction.
No, but I think if every member of this council votes for it and to hang the flag, that the government is speaking and saying we're willing to hang that flag.
Yes,
right?
I would say it's a step in the right direction, yes.
So different examples of potential policies. Should have them for everybody and one for you.
I mean,
Peter, anybody, I'm trying to pass out these letters, one for you, Frank. You're welcome. And then, I gave you 4 of that, 1 for you, and 4 of the next one, 1 for you. And then, so you should have a total of 3. And the next one, 1 for you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Not seeing anybody else for public comment. Peter, anybody online?
I'm sorry, can I just ask one more question?
Sure.
Just before I go home to digest this. I think if I understand correctly, you do agree that we need a policy in general.
Absolutely.
Because we're vulnerable now
Yep.
without it, right?
That's correct.
It's just that in your policy that you would prefer, you would like to say that the flagpoles are only for these flags.
I would, but I gave you examples of both. So
Okay.
what a policy could be if you did want to offer commemorative flags, or nationally recognized flags. I didn't mean to be demeaning there. I thank you for the clarification. I'll try to change my language. But, so I gave you a policy, a example of both, what would help us. But if that we did create in both cases, if we were to accept any other flag, it would require a vote of the Common Council. And so that's what I was suggesting, that we not get into that. If that's, you're certainly. And then I also gave you a draft of the banner policy that I believe we should implement, but we'll take any input on any of these policies that you would like to have, and we can discuss them. Okay? There's a start somewhere to give us all a chance to look at what I believe their options were, and you might come up with a different option, but I gave you somewhere to start. And then I think we are motion to adjourn. Do we have a second? Second. All in favor? Aye. We stand adjourned.